Welcome to the 2022 Florida Recycles Week. My name is John Truitt, Deputy Secretary of Regulatory Programs. This week is an opportunity to raise awareness about recycling programs throughout the state and the important part recycling plays in our everyday lives. With the help of the Florida Recycling Partnership Foundation, we will be providing educational opportunities and activities throughout the state this week. More details on these events will be shared later in this webinar. DEP has consistently encouraged Floridians to recycle as a way to preserve our natural resources. Reducing, reusing, and recycling play an important role in Florida achieving a more sustainable future. The legislature set a 75% statewide recycling goal for municipal solid waste by 2020. This goal does not sunset. In 2021, 5 counties reached this recycling goal. Lee with 81%, Palm Beach with 78%, Charlotte and Sumter with 77%, and Collier at 75%. Also in 2021, we processed almost 1 million more tons of recyclables. I encourage our residents and visitors to take the Keep America Beautiful recycling pledge by going to the website at the bottom of your screen. And remember to recycle on the go too. To make recycling on the go easier, we are working with our state parks and have partnered with the Florida Beverage Association and the Friends of Cape Florida to provide recycling bins in Bill Baggs Cape Florida State Park. We're looking to expand this pilot to other state parks in the future, so be on the lookout for that. I hope you learn all sorts of cool stuff this week and take the pledge to reduce, reuse, and recycle. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Brent Bell. I'm the Vice President of Recycling for Waste Management, now known as WM. WM is the largest recycler in North America. We have about 100 recycling facilities throughout the US and Canada, and we also are proud to be able to manage over 10 million tons of recycled materials for our customers. Our customers consist of residential customers, commercial customers, as well as large national account chains. Before we kind of get into the meat of the presentation, I want to talk about something that is always of interest to me, is making sure that all the recycled materials that we collect each and every day have a long-term sustainable home or outlet. It's the demand side of this equation. You know, it's really unique when you think about our kind of business on the recycling side, is we have 2 different customer bases. We have one set of customers that generates the material to begin with, and we're teaching them constantly how to recycle the right items in their bin to make sure the contamination rates are low. And then we have the other set of customers, what we call the outbound customers, that are responsible for making sure that they can take those products and turn them into good in markets, whether that's back into a bottle, whether that's back into carpet, or back into a new cardboard box. So making sure that supply and demand balance is always an equation is something that we've determined you really have to focus on the demand side a lot. One of the things, the stories we often get is, what happens to my recycled materials? Where do they end up at? And so we love to tell some of the stories that we have that are fascinating, especially around the circularity chain. If you look at a couple of case studies that we have, WM now, the carts that we put out on the street, whether that's recycling or trash carts, are now made from recycled plastics that were once collected at the curbside. If you think about all of the uniforms our frontline drivers wear, those uniforms were all once made from plastic bottles. They got turned into yarn and ultimately back into a frontline uniform. The shirt I'm wearing today was actually made of plastic water bottles. One of our big customers that we have that we love to tell the story on is called Unify out of North Carolina. Unify has a process where they can take plastic bottles that WM collects and they turn it into yarn, which ultimately gets put into new clothing. To do a little show and tell today, I'll start this off. So we would sell them bales of water bottles as we package it up, collected from the curbside programs. Their first process, they turned it into a flake. You can see the plastic flake there. This is part of their process. Then it goes into these little pellets, all made out of recycled material, and ultimately extruded into this type of a yarn. Once done in that yarn, then you'll see this is a pair of socks it's made out of, but it could be a shirt. You'll see the Reprieve brand. A lot of brands, now that you notice that, you'll see a lot of the brands that you're wearing probably in your closet today. Nike, Under Armour, Patagonia, those are all made through Reprieve out of their facility in North Carolina is where the yarn is typically generated. So one of the things we do is, if you think about the recycling rate today in the U.S. is around 30%, and the EPA has a goal to turn that into 50%. So as WM talks to our customer base, we look at whether it's the large, federal government, which has one of the biggest spending bills there is, whether it's a large corporation or even an individual homeowner. We say one of the things you can do is support brands that use recycled content. And so that's where at Waste Management we literally walk the talk on making sure that we have that circularity solution within our programs. So we think that's important as we go forward to make sure we have great sustainable end markets for these materials that we recycle each and every day. One of the things we thought would be important is to really highlight the difference between what's going on in the next 10 to 20 years versus what's happened in the past. So you'll see here we had 2018 to 2020, China's national sword. For the last 2 decades, the U.S. was really largely dependent, especially on the recycling programs, on shipping material to China. If you think about it, it was the ultimate backstop, right? China, we purchased a lot of products from China. It came over on shipping containers, and we would send them back essentially empty cardboard boxes, which they would make into new boxes. So it was a great backhaul program that worked for a while. In 2017, early 2018, China came out and said they were going to cut off imports of container board, of cardboard boxes, mixed paper. One of the claims was high contamination levels. So if you look at the U.S. programs at that time, we had about a 25% contamination rate throughout most of our recycling facilities. So it was essentially a wake-up call to us to say, we've got to clean up our program. So Waste Management came up with a recycling education program, Recycle Often, Recycle Right, to make sure consumers knew the right materials to put in their recycling bin. If you look at some other stuff that's been going on to help create the demand of this, so once you get a cleaner material, how do we create the demand side? A lot of the consumer product groups are setting out sustainability goals where they're announcing how much recycled material they're going to use in the future. Where this is really beneficial is because now we're seeing a lot of the shareholders and consumers, they're actually wanting to hold those brands accountable for the commitments that they're making on sustainability. There's also regulation that's being passed. There's minimum content laws in the state of California and New Jersey that will be effective in 2025, which will require these brands to use a certain percentage of recycled content in the new packages they develop. Walmart also has a big playbook that essentially says if you want to be on their store shelves in the next few years, you have to make your products with some recycled content, but also make it so they're recycled friendly in the future. That's all keys in helping identify these new end markets that we have, and most of them are domestic end markets. WM has a policy now that we do not export any residential plastics at all. We keep all of our plastic materials that we recycle here domestically, and most of that is actually kept in the Southeast United States. Whether those materials are turned back into new bottles, whether they're turned back into carpet, yarn, to make new tennis shoes, new clothes. There's all great circularity stories that we have around what we're doing with all of our customers' materials. If you look at the MRFs of the future versus the MRFs of the past, so WM is doing a lot of investments in upgrading our facilities throughout the U.S. That's really key because it has 3 key components when we do these upgrades. One is they're highly automated upgrades, so they're very efficient facilities. The second thing is the material quality that these facilities can produce is extremely high. We're able to extract out the higher value materials to make sure that we can get the best price for our customers at the end of the day. And then the final and most important part of these upgrades is the additional capacity that we can develop in these markets. While these facilities, sometimes they take up a slightly larger footprint, the machines are able to run in some cases nearly twice as fast as the older machines that they're being replaced by. So expanding that capacity is one of the big things that we're heavily focusing on to make sure that we can take advantage of that and make sure that we can increase the recycling rates here in the U.S. This chart really shows the demand side of things. So in the next few years, these are all the consumer product brands that have committed to using a certain percentage of recycled material in their products and packaging in the next few years. You see Coca-Cola's on the list. One unique thing that we've seen recently with Coca-Cola is as we worked with them, you'll notice the iconic green Sprite bottle is now in a clear bottle. And the reason why is because as Coke is looking to do more bottle-to-bottle recycling and use more recycled content in their materials, then we've identified for them the discoloration of the non-clear PET bottles, what's also known as number one plastic. That causes a lot of issues in the bottle-to-bottle system. And so Coke has made a sustainability effort to remove that and change it, alter the Sprite into being a clear bottle, which makes it easier to go back into bottle to bottle. So we definitely encourage the brands to work with the recycling processors to make sure that they can get the material back that they're looking for. Now, the one thing on this slide that I will say is where we have a call to action on is if you look at all their goals they have and the amount of material that they're going to need to fulfill these goals, it's between 5 and 10 times the amount of plastics that gets recycled in the U.S. today. So we really have to do our work to unlock more value, unlock more supply, so that these brands can make sure they get the materials they need to meet their sustainability goals in the future. One of the things you may have seen with our announcements and investments in recycling is about $800 million of investments in new facilities and upgrading facilities. And Florida will definitely get their share of that $800 million. I think that right now we've got earmarked nearly over $150 million of investments in the great state of Florida. And we're also excited to announce that we recently have approved and have planned a new facility in South Florida that will be one of the largest in the U.S. If you look at what the baseline is for these investments, we started these a few years ago, making sure that we had the latest technology. And some of our equipment is actually able to talk to each other, essentially. We call that intelligent sorting. These are pieces that can communicate back and forth to identify if they're seeing a certain material stream, this shouldn't be in that conveyor or shouldn't be in that spot of the recycling facility. It's able to communicate back to a centralized control panel, essentially, and indicate to our operators that could be an issue with another piece of equipment on the line or some item that they need to address. The other piece that I'd like to talk about is the fire suppression. So unfortunately, we still get some contamination in our recycling bins, whether it's propane tanks or batteries, and those cause fires, as you can imagine, in our recycling facilities. So we are investing in fire suppression technology, which can indicate through thermal devices and thermal cameras, heat detection, and automatically set off alarms to prevent and put out fires as we see them whether it's on the tip floor or other parts of the recycling facility. So we definitely want to make sure these investments are protected from incidents like a fire, and our employees are protected more importantly. This is a rendering of one of our newest investments that we talked about in Pembroke Pines. It's going to be on the same property of our existing MRF, but it will be a new building. We have a lot of land down there that we can take advantage of. And the best part about that, it'll be no interruption to the existing programs because we'll be able to build this facility as we run parallel the older facility. Everyone is very excited about this investment in Florida, and we're thrilled with the community to showcase this new technology that we have in the recycling space. This will definitely be one of the largest recycling facilities in the Southeast United States, and there's a lot of great end markets that we have for our customers to increase the recycling rate, and this facility has a lot of capacity, so we need a lot more tons to come into it, so we're very excited about that. I want to thank you all for having me today. We really appreciate all the business that WM has in the Florida area, and we hope that these investments will really increase the recycling rate and lead the rest of the country on how to recycle the right items. Thank you.
Did you guys know you can recycle plastic bags at Publix? You take them and drop them in a bin outside, and they get taken to a special recycling center. They get shredded up in little pieces and get sent through a giant washing machine and these crazy drying tubes that are 2 stories high. When they're totally clean, they get melted down and made into these little pellets. And the pellets get shipped to a bunch of different companies that use recycled plastic to make stuff. Almost anything you see can be made out of plastic bags. This table could be made out of plastic bags. Our reusable bags could be made out of plastic bags. Isn't that cool? This flower pot could be made out of plastic bags. That over there could be made out of plastic bags.
My name is Elizabeth DeWitt, and I am the President and CEO of the Florida Beverage Association. I also have the honor of being the chair of the Florida Recycling Partnership Foundation. The beverage industry strongly supports the Foundation's efforts to improve Florida's recycling rates through educational programs and outreach, like this webinar. We believe that taking proactive steps to increase recycling helps all of us. As a member of the Florida Recycling Partnership Foundation, we have the opportunity to network with Floridians like you who are committed to being leaders in increasing recycling rates and helping preserve Florida's natural environment. The Florida Beverage Association represents non-alcoholic beverages in the Sunshine State. Our members include Coke Florida, PepsiCo, Keurig Dr Pepper, Coca-Cola United, Buffalo Rock, and Pepsi Refreshment Services. Our initiatives focus on sustainability, health and wellness, and economic development in the communities we serve. As Floridians, we love our state's natural beauty and environment. That's why we've awarded environmental sustainability grants to local organizations in support of efforts to protect and preserve our planet. The FBA Community Grant Program has contributed over $270,000 over the past 6 years. This year's recipients include the City of Coral Gables for its reverse vending machine pilot project and the Bill Baggs Capes State Park Away from Home recycling project. From products in your neighborhood store to our support of local community initiatives, our presence is felt in every community across the state. We play an important role in the state's economy by providing good-paying jobs, paying significant tax dollars to the state and federal government, and making generous charitable contributions to organizations throughout Florida. In Florida, the beverage industry provides nearly 19,000 jobs and has a direct economic impact of $12.3 billion. In addition, Florida's beverage companies and their employees generously contribute over $113 million to charitable causes across the state. As President and CEO of the Florida Beverage Association, I have the unique honor of bringing fierce competitors together to collectively support the communities where we live, work, and play. One way we do this is through our commitment to environmental sustainability. The Every Bottle Back initiative launched in 2019 as a comprehensive initiative by America's leading beverage companies to reduce the industry's plastic footprint and keep our bottles out of the environment. The initiative is a sustained effort by the Coca-Cola Company, Keurig Dr Pepper, and PepsiCo, leveraging the equivalent of nearly $500 million over 10 years to modernize recycling infrastructure and inform people how to recycle better. The next few slides will go over the components of this exciting new initiative. The goal of Every Bottle Back is to reduce our use of new plastic by increasing the collection and remaking of our 100% recyclable plastic bottles. Our bottles were designed from their inception to be 100% recyclable, including the caps. We worked with engineers at MRFs to ensure that our bottles would be able to be fully processed and recycled. We know that behavioral change plays a key role in improving recycling in Florida. The average recycling rate for our bottles and cans in Florida is well below the national recycling rate. That's one of the reasons we've invested in awareness and education campaigns, communicating that our bottles are not intended to be single-use and are designed to be fully recyclable. You may have noticed on the package and on the cap messaging encouraging you to recycle your favorite beverage container. We know that people must see messages several times before a new idea or concept resonates, so we're taking advantage of our labels and caps as an additional medium for education on recycling. One of the challenges we face in Florida and across the U.S. is an aging recycling infrastructure. That's why we've partnered with the Recycling Partnership and Closed Loop Partners to create the equivalent of a $400 million fund to improve recycling infrastructure across the country. Since launching, the beverage industry has committed more than $19 million to support recycling infrastructure and education improvements in more than 24 communities, which together are projected to help collect 719 million new pounds of PET over 10 years. Projects in Florida are soon to be announced. If you have a project that you think would qualify for this funding in Florida, please do not hesitate to reach out. We know it's important to measure the impact of our efforts and investments to determine its effectiveness. That's why we've partnered with the World Wildlife Fund to track reductions in our use of new plastic and help in identifying additional interventions. Our companies are working with respected environmental partners and community leaders who share our commitment to ensure our bottles are collected and remade into new ones so they don't wind up in oceans, rivers, and beaches or wasted in landfills. We look forward to working with you as we keep Florida a beautiful place to live, work, and play.
We need to reduce plastic waste in the environment.
That's why at America's beverage companies,
our bottles are made to be remade.
Not all plastic is the same.
we're carefully designing our bottles to be 100% recyclable, including the caps.
They're collected and separated from other plastics,
So they can be turned back into material that we use to make new bottles.
That completes the circle and reduces plastic waste.
Please help us get every bottle back.
We hope you've enjoyed the Florida Recycling Partnership Foundation's programming for the first day of Florida Recycles Week 2022. Thanks to Florida Department of Environmental Protection Deputy Secretary Truitt and Brent Bell of WM for your presentations. And a special thank you to WM for sponsoring today's webinar. As we saw in the Publix video, please remember to take your plastic bags and other appropriate materials to Publix so that they can be recycled and help advance the circular economy. Now let's take a look at the rest of the week's activities. On November 15th, America Recycles Day, we are going to Lake Worth to visit Highland Elementary School. The Florida Department of Environmental Protection will present them with a Green Apple Award in recognition of Highland's commitment to conserve and protect Florida's natural resources. Florida Recycling Partnership Foundation members will be on hand to provide a fun, educational program demonstrating what to recycle and how to recycle right. Thank you to Coca-Cola Beverages Florida for sponsoring our first on-the-road event and to CEMEX for donating prizes. On Wednesday, November 16th, our roadshow continues with the Recycling on the Go event at Jetty Park in Port Canaveral, sponsored by Niagara Bottling and Wawa. Join us for a beach and park cleanup and then hear about Recycling on the Go programs by Keep Brevard Beautiful. I will also be on hand to provide insight on the beverage industry's Every Bottle Back initiative, as well as grant opportunities through the Beverage Association for organizations in the Sunshine State. A big thanks to Keep Brevard Beautiful, the Florida Ports Council, and Canaveral Port Authority for hosting the event. Thursday, November 17th is our social media day, where we will be posting on the hour, every hour, about food waste prevention, food share programs, and composting. Be sure to follow the Florida Recycling Partnership Foundation on Facebook and Twitter so you don't miss out. We'll kick off Friday, November 18th with a press conference on the steps of the Old Capitol in Tallahassee, where the Florida Department of Environmental Protection will present Recycling Recognition Awards. This year's winners include Charlotte, Palm Beach, Lee, Sumter, and Collier counties for achieving or exceeding the 75% recycling goal. The Florida Recycling Partnership Foundation will present Recycling Champion Awards to this year's winners, which include Best Overall, Publix Supermarkets, Communication and Education, Brightmark Marine Science 101, Waste Reduction, Recycling and Reuse, Brightmark, NOAA, Water Reuse and Recycling, Anheuser-Busch, Energy Efficiency, Tampa International Airport, Environmental Stewardship, National Stormwater Trust, Port of Tampa, Innovation, New Cycle Energy, Recycling Market Development, Exploria Stadium. Congratulations to the winners of the DEP Recycling Recognition Awards and to the 2022 Recycling Champions. Be sure to be on the lookout for a webinar in January where Recycling Champion winners will talk about their award-winning programs. We are honored to work on Florida Recycles Week with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. We hope our events will educate Floridians on the importance of recycling to help preserve our beautiful Florida environment for generations to come. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope you will join us for the other events during Florida Recycles Week.